Hello guys and welcome back. It has finally been the time to release AGR Pro version 3.0, which comes with some exciting updates. First of all, we obviously fixed all the known errors that you reported on Discord, added many improvements to the performance of the previously existing plugins, added a new widget to debug the animation states, which I'm going to showcase in a separate video, and a new inventory system, equipment system, and item system, which I want to go through right now, and also a function library. So let's go through this update regarding inventory from up to down. So first of all, this video will be an in-depth go into how this system works, why it works like this, and it will not go into details of certain examples, which means that if you are interested in using inventory system in a very specific way, I am going to make massive amount of videos on that. So you can just skip this video, go through to examples and find videos by their titles. However, if you want to know how it works and why it works, because it also works on multiplayer, then stick around, and I promise it is worth to just know the stuff I'm talking here. So first of all, we added a library. We can now get animation, AGR animation master component, AGR sound component, inventory, equipment, and item component directly from reference of an actor. So item component should be referenced from an item, obviously, and inventory and equipment should be parts of the character or any container that contains inventory. So any chest, barrel, or any container. It could be a car or a backpack, whatever you want. So you can now, instead of get component of class and find the proper AGR class, now you have those shortcuts, and I use them a lot in ability system, in many other systems. It's just a lot faster. We also use them internally now in our components. So let's get started with inventory. Inventory is an actor component. It's it's nowhere in scene. It's just attached to an actor. It can be attached to any actor, but if it is attached to a character actor, it acts in a different way. Attaching this component and adding a lot of items to a moving object would be very heavy on multiplayer, because in that case all moving objects would be moving with the container actor. So if you have a chest or something and it's on a cart and being pulled by some horses, make sure that it's well packed and you don't have too many items in there. But the system itself was tested on multiplayer with even up to 40,000 items in inventories at the same time, with characters moving, going in and out of their net relevancy. It was all working perfectly. So in general, it works really well. For it to work with character, you need to have a player state class, which must be blueprint based. If you have player state, which is just a player state, this actor type is just info. But if you make a new actor and make it player state, it makes actor which is of base class info, which means that now it has a scene root component and it exists in the scene. And it is very important for it to work with characters. So don't forget about that part. Also, if you're making items, obviously remember to replicate the item. It's for the best not to make the item net load on client. So if you have any actor and you have replication options, disable net load on client on those actors. It's quite important. If the actor simulates physics, definitely replicate movement. Don't do always relevant, please. And for any item, you should set net use owner relevancy, but this is being set automatically by the component, but it doesn't hurt if you remember to set it. That means that if item is owned by your character, when your character gets into relevancy range of other character, all his items will be replicated as well. Okay, so we know that how to prepare the project, how to prepare the actors for it. So we just add the inventory manager. We got it here. So what it can do, it can get all items that are attached to it, get all items of specific class, and this is just an actor class. And it tells you if it has any items of that class. So you can, for example, check if you have certain amount of items that are required for your crafting recipe, and if you have certain amount of items, then you can remove those items and craft the item. Get all items of tag slot type. So we'll be talking about what variables that an item has. So this can filter items but certain tag, and if your item has this tag, so it, for example, all weapons, then if your item has any of tags, like in my example, weapon pistol or weapon pistol Glock or rifle AK-47, then it would fit this specific criteria. And it just filters out the get all items. Now, if you want to add or remove items, if you add items of class, this creates, this just increments the quantity of certain item that is fungible, because you have fungible and non-fungible items, so stackable and not stackable. I will add an item component just here for showcase purposes to show you what kind of information we have in the item. So first of all, we got some IDs that you do not set, do not change. They are for internal use, and you can use them to compare ownership, and I will show you examples of how to use them in separate videos. You have obviously name. You have this simulate when dropped, which means that it will try to simulate physics once it gets dropped, and an item tag that just says what kind of item it is, right? And this is just being used for filters, nothing else. But you have this, stackable or non-stackable. If something is not stackable, it means that it is non-fungible, and we need to save this item state at all times. So when you add an item that is of this particular class, you add it directly. So you shouldn't use add items of class, you should actually add item to inventory directly if it is item of that is non-fungible, or just use the pickup function here. So just on, well, it's an internal function called pickup item, okay? However, you might have a situation when one actor gives you stacks of a different actor item. So you have an actor that is a tree, and that tree, when get punched, it gives you wood. So you would use function add items of class and add wood to your inventory, while the tree is not wood blueprint per se, right? You can get has enough items, which is being used for crafting, and it's just a check if your inventory has certain number of stackable items. So stackable items are trying to first increase stacks of an item that still has 3 slots, and then creates a new actor of the same class and start stacking again. So removing, just it can remove multiple stacks at a single time. So if you have stacks of wood 20 each and you need to burn 100 wood, it would just destroy 5 stacks of 20, but it can also as well destroy 4 stacks of 20, 1 stack of 15, and then on another stack remove another 5. Okay. Has exact item, so this is checking if you have item actor by reference in your inventory. This can be done for many reasons. For example, if you want to equip item, you should first check if it is inside your inventory, right? So you don't equip item from someone else's inventory. However, if you don't do this check internally, you can actually steal items from someone's hands even. And you can add item to inventory directly, which means that you can just add item by reference. It's also not doing any ownership checks. So any ownership checks you have to do on the server yourself. You can see that those functions that are not cosmetic, like this has enough item, they are all running on the server on authority only. So if you try to use them in single player game, they will work. If you try to use them directly on multiplayer, you don't have to do the has authority switch, right? Because this is being done internally. This function cannot run on remote client. And just for save game multiplayer purposes, you can override the ID GUID of the inventory if you want to, for example, set inventory GUID to match your player GUID or something like that. However, the inventory itself GUID is being randomized at start, and all variables that are necessary for save game are being save game serialized. So this is also quite important. So if you have a plugin that saves games for your entire map state, it will save all items, it will save all inventory and all equipment on all characters. Now in AGR Inventory Manager, you have new event dispatcher. You have all on item updated. And this is being triggered whenever an item is getting an update of stack or a new item is being added to the inventory. Okay, so that's everything you do with inventory, and that is enough to do any genre of game, really, like a survival, MMO, RPG, shooter, looter shooter, not a problem. I'm going to make a lot of examples with this system in different genres of game. Then you have equipment, and equipment is a second component that should definitely go only on a character, because inventory can go on any container while equipment should go on a character only. And equipment can also store separately items, because items that are being equipped leave your inventory, and when they're getting unequipped, they re-enter your inventory. So those two should be attached to the same parent so they can communicate with each other. This is quite important. Otherwise, you have to program how you get on unequip, where you put your item when you are unequipping into, for example, another inventory. You have to do it by hand. So you can get all items, see if you have any items equipped currently. You can equip item in slot, so slots are just names, and if you go into equipment, you can set them up here. So it's just a variable which is of a structure, and you have slot ID, you have the name of it, and honestly this should be just weapon, and I don't really need those others. Yeah. So this is how many items you can have equipped in different slots at the same time. So if you have, for example, primary and secondary weapon, you still have just one equipment slot, which is the currently equipped weapon, and you have to manage how many weapons you have in your inventory separately, which I will explain in the videos. So you just define it here. You also have references, which is just a map of name. So for example, 1. And then you can save a reference to some actor, and we'll go through it as well. So you can equip item in slot. Obviously this just says what's the slot name, and it has to exist here, and it is not case sensitive, so this could be called weapon with W being uppercase and here small case, doesn't matter, it will still work. And you just specify an item that you want to equip, and it will try to equip. If it succeeds equipping, it will also unequip the previous item in slot if it was valid. So it will unequip the previous item and equip new one, so we can do some extra stuff on both of them, and both of them will obviously trigger certain events in the item component itself, and it gives you a success or failure. Get item in slot, that just gives you item directly in the slot you specify. So let's say weapon. Unequip item from slot is exactly the same thing. So basically when you call this, it first unequips and then it equips new item. So it's running get item in slot, unequip, and then equipping the new one. You can also unequip by reference an item that you know that is in your equipment. For example, it's here. And it gets unequipped, doesn't matter what the slot is. So you don't have to unequip in slot, you just unequip specific item. So if you have an inventory where you store references to items on your character separately, if you know the item reference, you can just pass it here and unequip, doesn't matter what the slot is. And then you have shortcuts references, so you can store shortcut reference to any actor from your inventory, for example. and then you store it at certain name, which is also not case sensitive, and then you always refer to this name. And you can, for example, just say that this actor get item component, and what you want to do is equip item in slot. So you don't need this. So you would call equip item in slot, and the slot would be something, and actor would be this, if obviously this succeeds, right? So this would be the logic for those references. I will be going through them later on in depth. And then you have AGR item events. And by the way, notice that those are still those are working only on the server, while those cosmetic get and shortcuts are working everywhere. AGR item, by destroying an actor, you actually remove item from inventory as well. So this is all you have to do to register an item being removed and destroyed. You don't have to have a separate function. So watch out with this, obviously. And then you can just get item component from the item actor reference. And you have only 3 functions that you should call directly. So this is pickup item, obviously, and you push forward the inventory picking it up. Then you have drop item, which drops item, and use item, which uses item. And this doesn't do anything, like this does something. And it calls on a lot of functions internally, while this doesn't really do anything except of calling event dispatcher. So on event dispatchers, you have certain number of event dispatchers that you can use as events. So for example, this one, and it says that this inventory is picking up this item. If you want to do something about it or draw a debug string or something, you can do it here. Same goes for any other function. However, some of those functions like on item used will give you the user, so an actor reference. So if you, for example, want to heal this actor, then you just apply a negative damage to it, and you heal this actor. Simple as that, on use of an item. And then you, for example, destroy this item, which means that it's single use. So you got item used, obviously, item dropped. So it usually just drops at your location. If you wanted to give it some velocity forward, or drop it in front of yours, or teleport it somewhere, or I don't know, do something with it, you just use this event. And on pickup, you can also do some extra stuff. So for example, some items that are picked up, you don't want them to disappear. You want them to reappear attached to certain socket on your character body mesh or something like that. And then you have bind event on hidden shown. So hidden shown is an internal function. You can't call it yourself. And it is being called when the item is being hidden from the renderer and hidden from all collision, or shown back into collision and into the renderer and being rendered. So why this exists is because your actor can be very complex. It can have particles, sounds, stuff like that. So when it's being hidden, you want to stop the sounds and stop the emitters. And when it's being shown, you want to re-enable the sounds and re-enable the emitters. Simple as that. And then you have 2 events that are being called internally, and you just got event dispatchers, which is equip, unequip. So here you apply buffs, here you remove buffs from your character when you equip something. And also here you change your animation stance, you attach the actor to your character, you enable it to be able to shoot and do other stuff regarding, for example, weapons. We'll go through this in the examples. So yeah, this is everything regarding inventory. I'll be going in depth in just a second. I'm going to record some videos on examples how to use it. And it obviously works in multiplayer, and it is designed with massive multiplayer online games in particular. So yeah, I would love to see what you guys do with this inventory system, and look forward to more videos on it. Thanks for listening. Bye.